Hello and welcome to New Junction. Right, now today you join me, and I'm not playing on the double O gauge layout today. I'm actually going underneath to complete the O gauge loop. Now, as you can see, this bit is going to be where I'm going to put my HobbyZone stuff, and of course I've also got to try and squeeze in an O gauge loop. So let's see how we get on with that. Right, so here we are down at the O gauge level. Now, it's been bugging me this side for a bit because, as you'd imagine, O gauge track is huge, especially compared to double O gauge. But the biggest problem is the radius required so that I can have slightly bigger engines. Now, this is roughly, no, I mean really roughly, spaced out so that, or bent I should say, so that I could run larger engines. Now, I did originally think I wanted it to go behind the HobbyZone stuff, which would be something like this. However, there's a corner. When I put it here, the closest I can get is sort of there to roughly sort of here, which only leaves me probably enough room for maybe 2 units at most in between, which just isn't enough really, considering I've got quite a few. So I think what I'm going to have to do, which isn't such a problem, is if I bring the track forwards, it means I can then have the HobbyZone stuff behind it all, and then I can get all the units I've got in, and therefore have all the storage, which is primarily the reason I built the second layer, because storage was number one. The O gauge loop was just a sort of sub idea. So whether this ends up being removable in case it's in the way or not, we'll find out. But I suppose now I've settled on the idea of the track being in front of the HobbyZone stuff. Let's run through what I've got, and you'll see why it has to go at the back. So as you can see, my loft floor is currently littered with the HobbyZone units, and I'll take you through them just briefly of which ones I've actually got, so it's good for reference for you if you were to do a similar sort of thing to what I've done. So first things first, I've got 3 sets of the 6-drawer modular units. These literally are 6 drawers. Very useful. Then moving on, I've got 2 of the 3-drawer units. These can be used as kit storage, or they come with dividers. Now, they are fully removable, so very, very useful. Ooh, if I can get it back in. Of course, that leads me on to the bigger set. Exactly the same, except the drawers are bigger. I've also got 2 of the open units. One's got a plastic front. I was actually going to use these to store my ballast, because it's nice to have it on display, and easy reach rather than in a basket. Moving on to the first of my corner units. As you can see, I've got 2 of the drawed units, very similar to the earlier drawer units you've just seen, except obviously a corner. And then I've also got some of the open units to store more things, more practical things. Now for the tops, as you can see here, I've got the 2 of the sort of open holders, so you can put pretty much anything there, glues, etc. Then I've got your paintbrush, and I think that's for tape roll holder. Now, because when I do a lot of my modelling, I tend to watch a lot of you guys and your videos, so this is the iPad holder. I thought I probably could have got something more practical, but this suits me down to the ground because I love having my iPad up here. Then for the tops of the corner units, I've got 1 open shelf, again for more general products, and then I've got 1 for the Humbrol tubs and paint tubs, which works out quite nicely. Then for the edges of the corners, just to finish it off nicely, I've got a double pack of drawers and then the top corner pack, and I've got a kitchen roll holder, and again topped with a corner shelf. Right. Oh, so that's all that, and now I've got to try and squeeze it in behind the O gauge track. So now that's in place, and from a slightly elevated position, you can see why it benefits being at the back as opposed to being at the front. The track just nicely slots through, particularly the angles you get on the side drawers here. It just complements the track coming in, which I think should work very well. Right, that's a lot of storage now to fill up. Of course, the next job is to lay the track. To do that, I should clean the mess up that I've accumulated, and I promised myself I wouldn't let it do that, but it has. So I'll clean this mess up, and then what I'll do is I'll get on with bending the end of the current O-gauge track around, and then hopefully we'll have a running loop. Right, so mess out the way. As you can see, I've got myself a couple of boxes of the Pico Streamline SL700BH, and that's for bullhead track, and it's the wooden sleeper style. So, as you can see, of the two boxes, this is all I've got left from doing my full loop. Now, although O-gauge in general is quite a lot more expensive in terms of some of the rolling stock, the track is quite comparable because you don't need as much of it because it's bigger. So it wasn't as expensive on the purse as I thought it would be. However, where it gets you is things like the points. Now, of course, I'm using their set track points almost, just because of the space I've got. I can't really afford to have big, long express points, but they can be quite expensive, and rightly so. They're huge. In terms of laying the track, it couldn't be more easy. In fact, I actually think this is easier than double O-gauge. Probably because it's bigger. Usual gear, I'm just going to use my track cutters. They go together with double O-gauge fish plates, believe it or not. I am going to be adding in some the Pico fish plates with dropper wires pre-soldered to it, just saves me a job. And of course, the usual little tiny hand drill and some tweezers just to handle the odd track pin as I just sort of dummy fit it for now. Being O-gauge track and just trying to get this corner right, I am going to be sort of testing it slightly. So I've got to lay it to a point and then see if the trains go around it, and then if it needs adjusting, just lift the pin out. Right, let's get on with that. This should be fun. And there we go. As you can see, I now have a completed loop. It does need a bit of a rejig in places just to get the kinks out of it. You can see it's mightily close to my HobbyZone sets just there. So that's going to be interesting to test out. But otherwise, it goes past all the kits quite nicely. And then down there. Now, obviously this is extremely close to the left-hand side as you're looking at it. Hopefully that's not going to be too close. you can see the edge of my board is the closest I can get without the corners being too tight. Now if I take you over here, you can see up the other end, if I just zoom you in a second, ooh, my pannier all the way at the end there is about to come for a test run. It's been sat there nicely, so if I get it moving, we will see it, and hopefully it won't be too tight on the corner, but we shall see. And there we go. The track is now in place and running. Thankfully, the gap here is tight, but luckily the HobbyZone units just here can push back ever so slightly, because there is a bit of space still, and I can get my drawers open over the track. One thing I did forget to mention: the LED strips I've got, they are 5-meter packs, and you get these from Hobbycraft, and they're $14.99. And I've used 2 of them and they work wonders. It does look ever so slightly blue on camera, however in reality it's as bright as my normal tubes, but no, I'm really chuffed with how this second layer is coming on, and the ultimate goal, which was to achieve more storage, as you can see, is coming on, and like I said, cheeky little O-gauge loop. Right, I'm now going to tidy up the mess and start filling the new beast with all my gubbins and rubbish I've accumulated over the years of having this layout. But no, I look forward to having a much more organised loft thanks to the HobbyZone units. I'm sure you all know where you get them from, but there will be a link in the description should you wish to do similar to what I have. Of course, you don't need as many as I have, you could just have a couple, but there we go. Right, I'm going to leave you now, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.